takes the advantage of the multiple sessions. When you have multiple sessions which are running parallelly, and each session can take an advantage of the primary index in the table, all the sessions would run parallel. And then exports from multiple tables. It is not only from one table. You can execute or you can export data from multiple tables, even maybe with a join or maybe separate select statements. Okay, but it is all depends on you how you are going to use that file. If you are exporting data from employee 1 and employee 2 with the same structure, it's fine. You may reuse the data to load into some other application, okay, which consolidate the employee information from two branches, employee 1 and employee 2. But if there are with the different structures, the fast export won't restrict you to export. But after export, how you are going to reuse, okay, that is your burden. You may write a out mode to separate different structured records and do it. Okay, it's your wish. But it is better you use select statements in the same format to export the data into the file, so that entire records would be in the same structure. You can give different structured SQLs also while exporting the data, but you may not reuse it. Okay. And then it uses the support environment. That means it can accept the variables from the external files. Okay. So if you want to give any conditions with a hard-coded values in the where clause, like the city name equal to so and so, okay, or the date is so and so, if you hard code, you can use it only once. But if you use variables, okay, you can reuse it with the different parameters. The same functionality will be executed on different data which satisfy that condition at that moment. Okay, so it has ability to support the environment to accept the variable values from the external file systems. Okay. And it has a fully automated restart. Okay, with the help of these log tables, checkpoints, it has a fully automated restart. Okay, and it occupies the loader slot because this is the bulk load utility, a bulk export utility. It occupies the loader slots, so there is a limitation in the number of slots we use altogether, including the fast export, fast load, and the multi-load. We'll see that limitations. So this diagram explains you the functionality of the fast export. From Teradata database, it exports data very fast and gives the data into the host files, the Windows machines or Unix machines or mainframes. And okay, there is a question here: is there any session limit? Okay, so session limit. Okay, there is a question here: is there any session limit we have to use? Session limit depends on the number of amps we have in the configuration. Okay, for every client, you will get a best practices document or the functionality document where they will specify how many maximum sessions a developer can use it. Okay, for some organizations, it may be sessions 8, it may be sessions 12 or sessions 16 based on the number of amps and number of users and number of utilities scheduled by that time. They all depend on to define the number of sessions for the machine, but there is no hard limit at the Teradata level. It all depends on the number of amps and the configuration of the system. Okay. And now let's see the first command in the fast export. That is the begin export. Now within the begin export, you can use these parameters. Okay, so all session level parameters. First one is the number of sessions, which takes two values. Okay, if you use sessions, the maximum is mandatory. You have to specify how many sessions maximum it has to use. For example, okay, as per your rules and regulations, your organization rules and regulations, the fast export should use only 8 sessions maximum. Then you have to restrict your fast export to use 8 sessions. If you don't restrict, then what happens? whatever sessions available during the time, it occupy all the sessions in the Teradata. There are no default limit. It occupy whatever sessions available at that moment. Fine. If it completes successfully, it's fine. But if something happened and if our query is bad and it is occupying the sessions indefinitely, then it is an escalation. You will get an email from DBS that we told you to restrict the number of sessions to this, but you didn't restrict it, and it has occupied all the sessions and it is plotted all the users who tried to log in after you executed this fast export. Okay, so we have to restrict our fast export for a certain number of sessions which is specified by the DBS or the architects of the Teradata machine in the client PS. Okay, so we have to see that number and use that number whenever you write the exports or loads. Otherwise, it will occupy all the sessions available by the time. I'm not sure. If it completes successfully, it's fine. Otherwise, you will get a escalation. Okay, so better you restrict your sessions to the maximum number of sessions what you can use, and you may specify the minimum also, which is optional. If you specify minimum as 4, then the fast export will wait till it gains 4 sessions minimum. Okay, for example, if you executed the fast export now and there is no session available, it will wait. And if one session is available, it has to start with one session. But if you specify minimum as 4, it will wait till minimum 4 sessions available to execute. And once the 4 sessions available, then it will start execute and it will occupy up to the sessions what you specified in the maximum limit, that is 8. Okay, so it will try to acquire everything. So it starts with 4 and then 5 and then 6 and 8, then stops. Okay, so it will continue with the 8 sessions. And so this minimum is optional. You may not specify it. If you don't specify it, even one session is available, it will start the fast export, and during the execution, whatever the sessions available, it will try to occupy them and it will go up to 8 and it will stop there and it will continue with the 8 sessions. And at the same time, if 8 sessions are available, then get all the 8 sessions and it will continue execute. Okay, that is the maximum and minimum parameters in the session, where if you specify sessions, the maximum is mandatory. You have to specify so that it cannot go beyond this limit, and minimum is optional. If you specify, it will wait for those many number of sessions to start. Otherwise, it will start even one session is available and can go up to the maximum limit you specified in the maximum. And then the next parameter is the tenacity. Tenacity is specified in the number of hours. For the tenacity, the ability to wait fast export in case of server down at the time of initiation of the fast export. That means if I started the fast export now, but at the time the server is down, the resources are not available, at the time what should do, what this fast export should do? It has to come out by saying the server is not down and fail, right? But in fast export, we have a option where we can keep that fast export wait till the server is up within these number of hours. If I specify tenacity 3 hours, then even the server is not available at the time of invocation, it will wait in the queue. How many hours it will wait? 3 hours. Okay, the default is 4 hours. If I don't specify any values at the tenacity, the default is 4 hours. So each fast export will wait for 4 hours even though the server is not available at the time of execution of the fast export. Okay, so within these 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever you specify in the tenacity, okay, so each particular interval it has to check if the server is up now or not. If the server is up, it will start the execution. Otherwise, it will still keep on waiting. Then again, after some certain amount of time, it has to check if the server is up or not. So those frequencies by when it will see the activity of the server. Okay, that frequency we can mention in the sleep command, the number of minutes. Okay, so 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever you specify in the tenacity, it will wait for those many number of hours. But within these 4 hours, for each 5 minutes, we have to check the status of the server, if it is up or not. Okay, so default is 6 minutes. So for each 6 minutes, it will try to check if the server is up or not. If it is up, it will start execution. Otherwise, it will still keep in waiting till the tenacity hours met. Okay. So sleep, you can override the default 6 into 4 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever it is. Okay. So that those many number of minutes is used for the frequency of checking the server status. And then we have a notify. Notify, the default is off. That means it won't notify any errors to the users. If you want to mention the high priority errors should be notified to the users who is logged in, you can set up here. But by default it is off because the logs are used to see the errors, but the automatic email notifications are not required in the fast export. So generally it is off, but you can set these severity levels so that it will send an automatic notifications to the users. And then we have an end export statement. So after the begin export, it is the end export statement which delimits the series of commands that define a single export action. Okay, whenever it encounters the end export, that means okay, whatever the script it read, it has to stop and start exporting the data to the host file. It terminates the number of instructions whatever written at that moment to export the data. And then we have another command called dot export. Earlier we have seen begin export. It is to specify the session level values, the number of sessions, the tenacity, the sleep, and the notify. But here this export is the file level parameters. Okay, so the exported file parameters. What all things we specify here? Dot export the out file, file ID. File ID could be file name in case of the network attached machines and the dataset name in case of the mainframes. Yeah. And then the mode. There are two different modes here. One is the record mode and the indicator mode. Okay, we know record mode is not to preserve the null values. Indicator mode is to preserve the null values during the export and imports. Default is indicators. You see the underline here. So all these parameters, the underline are the default. If you don't specify anything, it will take an indicator mode. And the block size. Okay, we know the export utility would work the bulk export by using 64 kilobytes of memory. Okay, exactly what's the memory to use is 63.5 KB. Default. We generally call it as 64 because we are rounding it, but exactly it takes 63 point. So exactly it takes 63.5 KB. It is default. If you want to change this limit, you can change it by giving the integer here. If you want to make it as 100, so it will take 100 KB to move the data out of Teradata to the files. But generally it is to set 63.5 KB. And then formats. It is the file format. If you use the fast load format, it uses the fast load related delimiters at the end of each record, so that the file which is exported with this fast load mode can be loaded either by using the fast load utility or a multi-load utility. Okay, the default is the fast load, format. And we have other formats where it would support the external RDBMSs, including Teradata, but it can be of other formats also. We have the binary, text, and unformatted. Okay, all these are different. Okay, all these are different in terms of exporting the records with the delimiters. Binary, it uses only the record delimiter, only the field delimiters, but not the end of the record delimiters. Okay, and the text, it uses the field delimiters and the end of the record delimiter also. And unformatted doesn't have any delimiters at the field level or at the text level. So we generally don't use, not sure, I mean I didn't see all these are used. Yeah. The protocol should be same while export and imports. Okay, so if you export the data with the binary, while import also we have to keep it as binaries. Yeah.
So what does fast load imply?
The fast load implies the data which is exported through this mode can be loaded again through the fast load and the multi-load utilities. Okay, because it is the fast export utility, and in the fast export utility I am using the fast load mode to export the data into the data file. So the file which is exported and which is the outcome of this export utility can be used to load into Teradata again through fast load or the multi-load utility.
Okay. So if we mention binary, text, or unformat, we can't use fast load or mload or other utilities.
Yeah. Then, and if you use the text modes and if you align the data to get in a pipe delimited or comma delimited through fast export, then you may use it. Okay, in the multi-load you can have a var text format to be loaded, so like that you can manipulate it again, or to BTQ also you can load because it is a pipe delimited or a comma delimited file if the data is less. But generally if we use fast export, we export huge amount of data. So if it is a huge amount of data, we generally not support BTQ. And that's where the exported data of fast export is generally loaded through fast load and multi-load only. So if that is the purpose, you no need to give the report formats. You just use the fast load format so that it will be loaded into Teradata very easy. And then out limit, where you can specify the number of records to be exported to the file. Even you have some 100 millions of data in the file, but you want to restrict the data to be exported as 1 million, so it will limit the number of records to be exported to the out file. You can limit them with the out limit. And then the ML script. This is the parameter where it will create a multi-load script correspondingly for the exported data with all the parameters what you set here. Okay, so we no need to write a multi-load script from scratch. If you use this parameter in the fast export while exporting the data, it will create a multi-load script for you, which you can use it to load the data which is exported through the fast export. Okay, so it is very useful parameter where you can create the multi-load script automatically. You no need to write it. So multi-load script is automatically generated as an output of the fast export, and this multi-load script can be used to load the exported data of the fast export. Okay, so these are the parameters what we set at the file level, the data.
Manor, can you please explain once more the multi-script
ML
parameter?
script. Okay.
Suppose that if we are using multiple files to export, then how it will work here?
Okay, when you are exporting multiple files, okay, you use dot export command multiple times. Right, so in the multiple files you can write the ML script parameter also multiple times, so it will generate multiple multi-loads corresponding to each export what you do in the fast export. Okay, so we'll see that. You will
Okay.
see when I say multiple files can be exported, that means I'm getting echo.
Manoj,
Hmm.
so we cannot export the data into this any spreadsheet by using this fast export.
No, no. See, the purpose of exporting the huge data is to load into the tables. So when we want to load into the tables, why we export into readable formats first place? Okay. So generally, when we use fast export, that means the output of this utility should be loaded into the other tables. Then that is a typical use. So we generally use fast load, but there is no need to export into the Excel format.
So we
Again,
are exporting a data from a table, right?
yes,
Teradata table by using this utility, right?
yes.
And we are exporting into the tables again in Teradata. So what's the point?
We are not exporting. We are exporting data into the files, and we may
Into
load into the tables again. Yes.
okay.
Okay. When I say load, it may not be into the same table. Let's suppose we have three environments: UAT, production, and some development, and how you move the data from one utility to other utility as a developer. Maybe as a DBA you may use data movers or something, but all other developers won't have that facilities, right? So how they move the data? They export data from the production and they will import the data into the development. Like that they can refresh their environments for the test cases.
Oh.
Right? So that is the
Manohar,
purpose.
so exports can go for files and also for tables. But using upload, we can only import from only files, right? Not from tables.
Yes, yes. So fast export is to export data from the tables to the files, and fast load is to load the data from files to the tables.
Right.
Yeah.
And Manohar, I have a question for tenacity.
Mhm.
In tenacity, if we mention that by default, you mentioned default is 4 hours.
Mhm.
So when the server goes down for the past minute,
Mhm.
and it gets back during the last 1 or 2 minutes before 4 hours.
Mhm.
So before before it gets the utility completely exports the data, the it will establish that connection will be disconnected. Then how can we make sure that data is completely loaded?
See, okay, at the time of start point, in the time of you invoke the utility, if server is not available, then only it will wait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is to establish a connection with the Teradata. So before establish the connection, if the server is not there, then it will wait for those many number of hours. And for each sleep frequency, what you specify, it will wait those many number of minutes to check the next time the status of the server. Okay, let's suppose it is 5 minutes. For after each 5 minutes, it will try check the server up or not. If the server is available, then it will start the export. So it will
Okay,
export
if
the
the data
sessions. Yeah.
okay, if the data loads exceeds the 4 hours, then also it will the connection is established.
No, no.
Connection will be
If
there.
data takes more than 4 hours, it will continue. It is all
Okay.
about if the connection is not there. If the connection is there and if server is up, if everything is moving good, then beyond 4 hours also it will export. But taking 4 hours for a single export, it is again a bad thing, but here we are not taking it. But yes, if it takes beyond 4 hours, then it will still execute because the connection is there. If the connection fails, then it will wait for those many number of hours before coming out of the execution.
Manohar, in the middle of the export, if database go down, then it won't do anything, right? Just it will throw
Yeah,
an
it will.
error and then that's it.
Yes,
It won't do
yes,
anything.
yes. Okay. So let's
So
see
next time when
samples.
the database comes up, it will. I'm sorry. If like a database comes up again, it will start automatically.
Yep. Once it is not able to establish the connection, it will check during the sleep frequencies, and if within the tenacity hours, if the server up, then automatically it will continue.
So how does it know? It doesn't have checkpoint, right? It's checkpoint.
It's not about checkpoint. It's just a sleep parameter. What you see here.
No, I think Manohar is thinking about like when the database go down while the export is in the process. That's what he's asking. Looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When export is active and if the server down, then it is an error.
Yeah.
It will throw an error code, server not available, and will come out of it. And as it is having a checkpoint, so you have to restart it again, so that from the last checkpoint onwards, it will continue the export. Okay. So once we see the export script, then we will understand what are the logs it maintains and how the checkpoint works.
Definitely.
Okay. So see the sample script here. The first statement in the fast export is not the logon statement. It is the log table for the restartability purpose. So what it uses to maintain its default checkpoints for the fast export. So this is the first statement here. Log table, the table name. You just specify the table name. You no need to create it. The fast export will create itself. Okay. And then the next statement is the run file logon, the logon statement. And then you can use variables. Okay. Here city name and zip code are variables which are set with the values. And then begin export sessions 4. So maximum it can go up to 4. What is the minimum number of sessions it will occupy? As I don't mention, it will start even one session is available and go up to maximum 4 sessions. And then dot export out file the file path. If it is in current directory, you no need to mention the entire absolute path. It will take the relative path if you are in the same directory. Okay. And all remaining are optional parameters which take all the defaults. Right? Tenacity 4 hours, sleep 6 minutes, no notifications for the begin export. And in the export, what are the other parameters after the out file? The format is fast load format, mode is indicator mode, and no ML script is mentioned, and the 63.5K blocks of memory, all are default. And then we used our actual select statement which result to be exported into the out file. So it could be joins, it could be anything, and you can use your variables whatever you declared at the top of the script with the set command. In this session, these are the two variables which hold these values, and to represent these values we have to use an ampersand prefix with the variable names. And if you observe, for the character variables we have to use the single quotes. For the number variables we no need to use the single quotes. And while assigning also, for characters we have to use the single quotes, for numbers we no need to include the quotes. And the end export log off. So the data of the select statement is exported into the cust data file. And a single job may have multiple select statements which will be executed sequentially by the fast export. And the select statement which you are using in the fast export has some restrictions. So okay, before seeing the restrictions, you can see the example here, how we can write multiple exports into the same script. See the log table, the logon command. Okay, the dot display is a command which displays some system variable values before we load. Okay, so in the log we can see exporting cust file with the current date. This date 4 is a system routine in the fast export which we can use to display the date. Sorry. And then the begin export, the export out file, the cust file, you may use different SQLs, or you may use a join, whatever it is. Okay, the customer 1 is in the same format and customer 2 is also in the same format. So the data of both the tables is loaded into the cust file. So when you load the data of cust file, you are loading the data from both the tables because it is consolidated into a single file. Okay, so here it is one export, begin export and end export. And the same script you can use it for the another export also. Okay, again, begin export, export out file, transaction file, select star from transactions and end export. Okay, so when we are using dot begin export and end export 2 times, we have an opportunity to define all the export level parameters. That means the multi-load script, everything, right? Whatever we have seen. So these things we can mention it. So that's where, okay, for the earlier question, here someone asked how we can create multiple multi-load scripts if we use different select statements in the export. Okay, as we are using begin export also 2 times, we can specify a multi-load script here so that the multi-load script is used to load the cust file, and here also it will generate one more multi-load script which will be used to load the data trans file. Okay, so what is the output of, how many outputs will be generated if I use multi-load scripts also, my ML script parameter also in the exports out of this particular script? What are the number of deliverables or number of output artifacts it generates if I use ML script also in each begin export command? Can anyone? How many files it generates?
2 files.
2 data files, okay. And if I use ML script parameter also, so here one multi-load script and here one multi-load script. So 2 multi-load scripts and 2 data files are the output of this multi-load, this fast export, right? And that is how you can create multiple multi-load scripts also in a single fast export based on the number of exports what you do. And that is when you use ML script parameter in the begin export command. Otherwise, no multi-load script is generated. Okay. And whenever you use a select statement in fast export, you have to follow these rules. You should not use the current date. Okay, it should not use a equality condition with a primary index or a unique secondary index. With option to generate total or subtotal responses rows is not possible. Okay. And using modifier to submit data parameters as a constraint to the select. Using and with by all are some report level commands, all are commands which we cannot use them for the subtotal displaying purpose. And you know why we should not use a equality condition with primary index and USI, right? Because if I give a equality condition with primary index, hardly how many rows I can export? Very less. And if it is a unique second index, hardly it is only one row I am going to export if I give a equality condition with the primary indexes, unique second index and primary index. So that's where it won't accept these conditions.
Why it not accept non-data table current date?
Because it has the internal system routines. Because these are, so fast export has to export data from the table, and when there is no table exists for the current date, from where it will export the data, because it has to store in physically somewhere in the pump space, then only it can export. But current date is a non-data table. How you display current date? Select current date, but you are not using any table. So if there is no table, how fast export can export the data? So to display current dates in the fast export, you may use a system variable routines in the fast export. This is date 4. And it is a note, it is not a restriction but a recommendation. while writing your select statement, you should not ask for a sorted data like this. You should not do that, because the purpose of the exported data is loading into the servers, most probably in all the cases. Then why you want to sort the data into while exporting the data? Because if you give an order by, it has to do more operations to sort the data based on the columns what you specify. Okay, in order to avoid those resources to be consumed, you don't use any order by clause in the select statement when you are using it in the fast export script to export the data. Because the ultimate purpose of exported data is to load into some other Teradata or some other tables. Then why you want to sort it while exporting it? So it is just a code review checklist point where when you are reviewing any fast export, you have to ensure order by clause is not there. If it is there, certain justification should be there. The fast export don't restrict you, but it is a recommendation.
Manohar, and in the select statement, can't we mention the city is equal to Los Angeles and zip code is equal to, do we need to mention those dot set?
Yeah, you can mention dot set city name to Los Angeles. Two, it is not equal to. Yeah.
I mean, can we mention the select statement under where filter condition, where city is equal to Los Angeles and
Yeah,
zip code is
you can specify it here. But let's suppose here you have 100 equals, and in all 100 equals you have to have these variables or the values. And after some time, if you want to change the values, then 100 times you have to change it. So better use a variable here so that if you change it one time, all the 100 times it will take into impact. But it won't stop you. Yes, you can use city equal to Los Angeles, you can use it without using the variables. But this is the best way. Whatever variables you want to use, you use as a variable, because if there is any change later, by changing it only one place, it will impact in all the places in the script. Here we have only one, but if we have some 10 times, then better create a variable and do it.
So can we pass parameter if you need to mention more than one city name?
Yeah, I will come to that.
If you need to
Multiple sets of parameters, right? Yeah, I will come to that.
Yeah, Manohar, in this
Manohar, where we are specifying the path file for output file, out file? Are we not specifying any path?
Here in the export, the file, out file, file path. This is the file path. Yeah, some other questions, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Manohar, in like the select star from customer 1 and customer 2 into the same table, right? Those two statements will be executed in sequence. The two tables you are exported into one file.
Yeah. Yeah, first this will be executed. Yeah, the two statements will be executed one by one, because it is not a multi-statement request. So after one request only, it will go for another request. And each request will be run parallelly. This request will run parallelly by the amps, and this request will run parallelly, but they will run sequentially. Statements.
Okay, one after completing the one, and then it will start two.
Yes.
Manohar, how the data will be arranged if it is selecting the data from two tables parallelly?
That is your burden. Why you were exporting two tables data into single file if there is any purpose? Okay, so again, you have to have an identification. Maybe in the customer one, the first column has a value A. You may identify it as the data from customer one. And if the first column of customer 2 has a value B, then you will identify it as a second customer. It is all depends on your logic, how you identify the differentiation between these two data. Clear?
Dot begin export statements will be executed in parallel, right?
Yeah, these can be run parallel. Yeah. This run can parallel, this can run parallel. Okay, now you see the next level. Okay, so before this, let's try to, we already done with the time. Okay, then tomorrow we'll start with all practical on the fast export. Okay, we'll start with the normal fast export and we'll see the acceptance of the variables from the external files, the accept command, where we can use these variable names in the rest of the scripts. Okay, these things we'll see tomorrow. Okay,
Thanks, Mohan.
thank you. And we'll meet tomorrow, same time, to same link.